1913, the introduction of the Federal Reserve cast a dark shadow over humanity that caused us to become fiat slaves. Let me explain. In the 16th century, the feudal ages, when feudal lords used to own land and used to own their little kind of kingdoms, the peasants would come and they would work on the land in exchange for what? Food, safety, security, and a place to live. But the peasants only worked 150 days out of the year. The rest of the year they had free. They kind of did whatever they wanted. They didn't work during the winter. So why is it that all these free people are working 300 days out of the year and have nothing to show for it except the exact same things that the slaves, or the peasants back in the day had to show for it, which was food, maybe a little bit of security, maybe not if you're in London, right? And home that you don't even own. So when I tell people, hey, you're a peasant, they're like, I'm not a peasant. Okay, you're worse than a peasant. You're a fiat slave because you're working and running around in that rat race that was constructed, right, to keep you subjugated and controlled. Because the people, well, whether it's the bankers or the people that kind of control the narrative, and it's not just one individual, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of people and lineages and dynasties and that understand how to control individuals, realize that it's a lot better and easier to have a slave work for you under the premise that they're free and that they're working for themselves than to whip them into submission, because it's not ROI positive to whip your slave into submission, to demoralize him, to make him weak. No. You want the cow to produce a lot of milk, so you got to keep pumping it. And people realized very later on in kind of reality that this system was kind of fucking you up. And you had the introduction in 2009 of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is kind of that first competition of sound money that we've had since 1913. And that would be probably in the last 100 years, the two catalyst points that I think people should be focusing on, because people wake up and they want to work for money. But then you ask them, what is money? And they don't know how to define what is money. Who makes it? Who prints it? Who allows there to be $6 trillion printed into circulation? So under the premise, I'm going to be generous that, let's say minimum wage is $15. We'll put that at a US minimum wage. You know, the government of the United States printed $6 trillion. Divide $6 trillion into hourly wage. You're talking about over $400 billion hours of unaccounted labor. So you have this energy and this labor that's supposed to be input, right, into the system in order to receive money. But what happens if you input fake money? There's no work that validates it. So you have the actual work become diluted. That's why all these individuals are out here, which is really funny, working and working and working, and they can't seem to progress. And it's because the fiat system that was cast upon them was designed by nature to keep them as a slave. I think if people begin to study the banking system, which is breaking in real time, and begin to understand that there's other monetary tools that can be utilized to enable your ability to preserve your purchasing power and preserve your work energy, it's a good thing. I'll give you the example in a way that the audience can understand. So let's say you were doing consulting back in the day and you got a $10,000 paycheck. If you spent that $10,000 the same day that you made it, it would have been worth a lot more than it was worth today. But the thing is, it's not that the money's worth more. It's that the labor, right, is worth less. So the labor is correlated to your purchasing power, not to the dollar amount. So that $10,000 in 2010 today is $7,000. And it's only been a decade. So where is it headed? Do you think it's only stopping? Do you think they're not going to print any more money? The Federal Reserve is one of the biggest scams perpetrated on humanity, and that takes you down the rabbit hole. It's a great starting point.
Do you think it's intentional from the very beginning?
Yes, brother. Fiat system is designed to fuck you.
What's the alternative?
Bitcoin.
What do you think about a gold standard?
I mean, how much gold is there in the world?
It's limited supply.
Who told you that?
Well,
that's it.
Yeah. Sorry, my philosophy, on that as well. It's that it's harder to mine to get to the extracts, basically. To discover more.
Sure. It requires energy, right? It requires energy. So the value of the gold is correlated to the difficulty and the energy that it requires in order to get it. But how much is there, right? What's telling you that they're not stockpiling this motherfucker up and just controlling and manipulating the prices? JP Morgan, $2 billion in fines and lawsuits from manipulating the gold market.
And Credit Suisse.
It's fucked.
And everything that's being Credit Suisse, UBS in Switzerland. How do you action this information? So you notice you're a part of this system. You're already in the system.
You stop working for money.
So
you start working for purpose, and you start working to create income producing ecosystems. So if you're working and exchanging time, which is the most valuable resource that you have for an imaginary piece of money that anybody can make or anybody can print out of it. Imagine being so stupid that somebody's out there printing money. Somebody's printing money, and on the counter, you're working for it, and then you're getting taxed because they need your taxes in order to run the government when they could just print it. It makes no sense whatsoever. So stop working for money. Stop working for a paycheck. Start working towards a life that instills freedom and instills your ability to produce money without you having to work. Now, that may sound like insane for 99% of people. So where do you start? You start by not spending, right? You start by not being a consumer, but being a producer. So most people are consumers. That's why they're always in the rat race. If you're producing, you're always being able to generate income, but you don't want to be producing just with your time. You want to be producing with systems. Now you have AI, now you have automation, now you have software. Dude, you can literally be making money while you sleep. And if you think that's not real, look at all the digital companies that are running. They're making money while the owners are sleeping.
One, I think, limitation that people have sometimes when they start making money, they just end up blowing it, right? But you've really focused on that multiplication, the systems, the processes, which I've been trying to stay very abide by. Why do you think people are get caught at that threshold? And like, what are the ways you've been looking at scaling digital businesses so that you're able to continue growing?
So most people, let's say they have $100,000 in the bank account. They want to show off that they have $100,000 in the bank account. People that have $1 million in the bank account, they want to show off that they got $1 million. I don't want to show off. I don't give a fuck. I know what I have. I know what I'm worth. I know what my companies are worth. I know what my companies produce. I don't have to show it to anybody. I don't have to prove it to anybody. I just have to continue operating and understanding that I don't want to spend the initial capital that required time. Because I tell people, you don't buy things. Listen to me. You don't buy things with money. You buy things with the amount of time that it takes you to get that money. So for example, and I say it quite often, if you and I were to walk into a Louis Vuitton store with somebody that works at a McDonald's, they would look at that $500 wallet a lot more expensive than you and I would. Why? Because they think, oh, wow, $500? That took me how many hours of work?
A week.
Wow, that's expensive. For us, oh, well, you just make a couple bucks here and there, have it in some sort of automation. You don't value the $500 because it didn't take you a lot of time. So what you need to do is safeguard your time and understand that the time that you input is designed to liberate you, not for you to spend it liberating another person.
How do you build those systems? So you focus on e-commerce, but you've done other stuff now with Capital Club. What's your philosophy, first principle philosophy of how you're building out systems that are generating you revenue long into the future? So
there's two things that you need to focus on in business. There's income producing tasks and risk mitigation tasks. So your risk mitigation tasks in business are your customer service representatives, your accounting, your budgeting, things that you can actually delegate or offsource or onboard somebody to take on. Then you have your income producing tasks, right? These are your sales. This is your marketing, the hands-on that actually generates money. Your goal is to, as soon as possible, anytime, whether you're reselling sneakers or whether you run a Forbes 500 company, your job is to not do the things that somebody else can do for you, right? So if you're flipping sneakers, go have a runner. Oh yeah, but I won't make as much money. Yeah, but you get to save time. Yeah. Well, yeah, but why don't you value your time? Because you're not doing anything productive with that time. I get to hang out with the people that I love. I get to go for walks. I get to biohack. I get to travel, and I'll pay somebody or give them a slice of the pie so that I don't have to do it. So as soon as you get started in your entrepreneurial journey, the first thing you need to do is start onboarding people that can take care of these risk mitigation tasks. Like, why are you answering customer service emails when you can hire somebody from the Philippines for $350, $400 a month, which is a good salary there, base entry level salary, to do it for you. They'll be happy, they'll be chilling, and now you have time to focus on what? Income producing tasks. And not even going deep into systems and operations. That's the first part. The second part is your KPIs, your key performance indicators, right? You need to know where you're going. Like, what's your objective? Most people want a fancy business in order to make money. Most people would say, oh, I'm going to build the next Uber. Dude, if your goal is to make money, you don't necessarily have to be a business owner. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to make money. If your goal is to become free, then why are you going to build a SaaS business that has tens of investors that you have to pick up the phone and be accountable to?
Yeah.
That's not freedom.
100%.
That's not freedom. And we see it rinse and repeat. I'll give you an example, which was a crazy one. Loom. Do you know the company Loom?
Yeah.
They're the
Always
screen
use them.
recording company.
They just sold, right?
They just sold, and everybody's like, oh, they sold for $950 million. Go look at the faces of the founders and go look at the tweets that they were putting out, because they raised a ton of money. They didn't own a massive percentage of their company, and they slaved their motherfucking lives away for what? A couple $1 million paycheck. A lot of them said it wasn't worth it.
One of my friends, I won't mention his name, but he raised a ton of money, around 20 million, built a really big product that kind of caught the wave of before the tightening of the economy the past couple of years. And he basically lost his head in the process. So ran out of money, business closed down. And when I speak to him, he said a lot of his VC friends, or a lot of his friends who've raised money from VCs, they all say, you'll be lucky if you get out with your head, because most of you will lose your head, you'll lose everything around you. Now, people cheer when you raise the money, and they cheer at the launch parties, but they're not there for you at the end, right?
Bro, there's nothing to cheer when you raise money. You're raising money.
It's someone else's money.
It's somebody else's money that's there. That person is investing into you as the mule, as the vehicle for them to multiply it. How do you get to the place where you're investing? That's why now I'm focused on private equity, venture capital. I have my fund. Why? Because I'm going to invest into hustlers, people that want to elevate, people in my community that are actually going to put in the grunt work and the hours. I'll be damned if I go fucking raise money out there to be some bitch boy slave to some white collar suit motherfucker in Wall Street that is going to call me and ask me for my quarterly reportings. Fuck that shit.
And it even happens.
Bro, I'll live under a bridge before I do that shit. No chance. That's back to slavery, dude. That's back to being golden handcuffs.
100%.
Fuck that.
But over the past couple of years, that was considered like the proper path to build a billion-dollar
That was
company.
considered the proper path by who?
I know, but that was like when a lot of VC money was flowing, people were like, go raise cash. And I was actually in that scenario. I met someone here in Singapore. I used to live here for the last couple of years. And someone was like, if you have a slide deck, we can bring it to a VC and we can raise you a bunch of money. And just something deep down didn't seem right at the time. And I was going to build like a financial product. And I was like, it just doesn't feel like aligned to what I want to do. And thank fuck I didn't take the cash, because 2 years later, 90% of startups are
dead.
Yeah.
Dead, obsolete, dude. It's crazy. And like you said, people lose their fucking mind in the process.
100%.
And I'm not about it, because the entire purpose of entrepreneurship is freedom.
Question for you off that. Do you think entrepreneurship can also be a matrix? Because if you consider when people start making money, they go to Dubai, they go to Miami, they get the Rolex, they get the chicks. Do you think that's a philosophy?
I mean, that's not entrepreneurship. That's lifestyle.
Yeah.
So that's lifestyle bondage, right? So you determine what you do with that money. You determine what you do with your finances, and you determine what you do with your decisions. So people are a slave to lifestyle of what somebody else has told them equals successful entrepreneurship. That's why, I create content. You won't ever see my cars. You won't ever see. Why? Because I don't think that dictates successful entrepreneurship. To me, entrepreneurship is I work for myself, or I work in a conglomerate with a group of individuals. I set my own rules. I determine my own path, and I work at it every single day. And dude, I've been an entrepreneur with $200 in a suitcase. I was an entrepreneur fucking pressure washing basketball courts. It was just the steps that I needed to take in order to be where I am today. And it's the mindset, right? It's the mindset. It's not the bank account that matters, because you can have a ton of money and end up looking like Mark Zuckerberg